She said it with her wineglass raised. "We're ashamed of you." The table stilled. Then came the brittle laughter. Forks paused. Eyes shifted. Crystal lights trembled against a silence sharp enough to cut. I didn't flinch. "My name is Nora Hart, and I've heard that tone my whole life." The too red lipstick. The too tight smile. The same expression she wore the night she said I'd never become anything. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something in me had finally stopped bending. This time, I wasn't a child anymore. This time, I was ready. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from, city, state, or country, and one detail about your setup. Here on Echoes of Life, we love knowing who's sharing this moment with us. When I was 8, I drew her in crayon, bright smile, brown hair, a gold star on her shirt. I wrote my hero under it. I taped it crooked on the fridge. She left it overnight. By morning, it was gone. She tossed it out. "It was crooked," she said. That was my first lesson in shame. My brother's medal stayed. My sister's ribbons stayed. Everything of mine disappeared. Quietly, efficiently, like it embarrassed her to look at me. Growing up, praise lived in other rooms. I learned to survive without it. She called it tough love, but it felt more like conditioning, training me to shrink, training me to stay small. When I earned my scholarship, she said I was lucky. When I bought my first apartment, she said, "Don't show off." When my startup collapsed, she didn't hug me. She said, "I told you this would happen." Her voice was always ready for my failure, almost eager. But the worst moment came later. A family gathering, crowded kitchen, clinking glasses. I passed the hallway and heard her whisper. "She embarrasses us," she told my aunt. "She thinks she's better than everyone, but look at her." They laughed, not loudly, just enough to bruise. I stood there holding a bowl of salad, pretending it didn't matter, pretending I didn't hear. But something cracked. A quiet, irreversible split, the kind you don't fix with apologies. After that night, I changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deliberately. If she wanted a villain, I would give her truth instead. Because the next time she tried to humiliate me, I promised myself she wouldn't walk away untouched. I didn't rush in with accusations or raised voices the moment I realized what was happening. Anger would have been easy, almost automatic, but it wouldn't have changed anything. It would have played right into the pattern she understood best. So instead, I chose something far more uncomfortable and far more powerful. I chose to say nothing. Silence became my shield and my strategy. It gave me distance, and in that distance, I found clarity. I began to observe her not as a daughter seeking approval, but as someone studying a performance that had been perfected over decades. My mother lived for control, not the obvious, forceful kind, but the polished, subtle version that hides behind perfection. Every gathering was curated like a gallery exhibit. The holidays were her masterpiece. Seating arrangements were planned like chess moves, menus designed with colors that matched the decor, conversations guided without anyone realizing they were being steered. Even photographs were rehearsed. Angles, lighting, smiles, all practiced until they looked effortless. She didn't just want admiration, she needed it. It fueled her, validated her, kept her identity intact. Without it, she seemed almost fragile, like something essential might crack. So I watched her more closely than I ever had before. I listened to the stories she told others, stories where she was always composed, always right, always admirable. I started noticing the gaps between what she said and what I knew to be true, the small edits she made to reality, the pieces she left out, the moments she reshaped entirely. I counted them, not out of spite, but out of understanding. Each omission, each exaggeration, each polished lie became part of a pattern I could finally see clearly. At the same time, I began rebuilding myself in a way no one else could see. There were no announcements, no dramatic changes, no sudden transformations, just quiet, consistent effort. I worked late into the night when no one was watching. I took on freelance work during weekends, filling every spare moment with something productive. I learned skills no classroom had ever offered me, not because I was trying to prove something to her, but because I was finally doing something for myself. My first attempt at building something of my own failed completely. The second attempt didn't go much better, but failure stopped feeling like an enemy. It became familiar, almost comforting in its honesty. There were no illusions in failure, no performance, no audience. Just reality. And inside that reality, I grew stronger. Each setback shaped me, sharpened me, made me more resilient in ways no success ever had. Eventually, my progress turned into something tangible. It wasn't flashy, and it didn't come with applause, but it was real. I moved into a small apartment on my own. No financial help, no celebration, no acknowledgement, but it belonged to me. Every corner of it, every quiet moment inside it. It was the first space I had ever had where her voice didn't echo in my decisions. I could close the door and know that what happened inside those walls was entirely mine. Then came Christmas, the time of year she treated like her grandest stage. Everything had to be flawless. The tree was always perfectly decorated, ornaments placed with deliberate symmetry. The food looked like it belonged in a magazine. Every detail existed to reinforce the image she wanted the world to see. A perfect family under her perfect guidance. That year, I didn't arrive when I was expected. I arrived late, intentionally, very late. I knew how much she valued timing, how much she relied on everything unfolding exactly as planned. Walking in after everything had already started disrupted her rhythm. I saw it immediately. Her smile tightened, just for a second, but it was enough. The room felt different. My siblings looked at me as if I had brought something unpredictable with me. She approached me with that familiar sweetness, the kind that always carried a hidden edge. "You look tired," she said, her tone light but loaded. I knew what she meant. I always had. I responded with a smile of my own. "It's been a productive year." My words carried their own meaning, one she couldn't easily twist. Dinner continued, and she shifted into her usual role. She praised my brother's promotion, my sister's engagement, highlighting their achievements as if they reflected her own success. Then she turned to me, her expression sharpened by the wine in her glass. "And you?" she asked, her voice almost playful. "Still working on those little projects?" I didn't answer, not because I didn't have one, but because I understood the power of withholding it. My silence disrupted her expectations. She relied on reactions, on responses she could shape or dismiss. Without them, she had nothing to work with. She pushed further, trying to draw me into the narrative she had already written. "We're proud of our successful kids," she continued, her voice carrying across the table. Then she paused, letting the moment stretch. "But you're harder to explain." The room grew tense. I could feel it in the way everyone shifted slightly in their seats, in the way conversation stalled. I remained calm, breathing steadily, waiting. Then she said it, out loud, for everyone to hear. "We love you, but honestly, we're ashamed of you." The words landed heavily, followed by scattered laughter that felt forced, uncomfortable. For a moment, she believed she had regained control, that she had reestablished her place at the center of everything. I stood up slowly, not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough to change the atmosphere. The room fell silent. Every movement paused. Every eye turned toward me. "You want honesty?" I said, my voice steady and quiet. "Let's try it." She tried to interrupt, to redirect. "Sit down, you're overreacting." But I wasn't reacting. Not anymore. "No," I said calmly. "Not this time." I spoke without raising my voice, because I didn't need to. The truth carried its own weight. "You spent years building this image. The perfect mother, the perfect family. But perfection doesn't leave invisible scars. It doesn't turn mistakes into humiliation." She tried to stop me again, but I continued. "You ignored me when I did well. You mocked me when I struggled. You used me as an example when it suited you and dismissed me when it didn't. That's not strength, that's control." No one interrupted. Not my siblings, not anyone else. The silence that once protected her now held space for something else. "You said you're ashamed of me," I continued. "But the truth is, I stopped being ashamed of you a long time ago." The impact of those words was immediate. She didn't have a response ready. For the first time, she wasn't in control of the narrative. The script she had relied on for so long was gone. I didn't wait for her to recover. I didn't wait for anyone to respond. I simply placed my napkin on the table and walked away, quietly. No slammed doors, no dramatic exit, just a clear, deliberate choice. Outside, the cold air felt sharp against my skin. My phone started ringing before I even reached my car. Her name flashed on the screen again and again. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped. Later, messages followed. Accusations first, then guilt, then something softer, almost uncertain. Days passed before my brother called. His voice sounded different, unsettled. He told me she hadn't stopped crying, that she kept asking what she had done wrong. I told him the truth. I hadn't created anything new. I had only stopped protecting what was already there. Eventually, she called herself. Her voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. Not controlled, not composed, just uncertain. She spoke, trying to explain, trying to piece together something that made sense. But her words didn't hold the same power anymore. When she finished, I responded simply, "I didn't hurt you. You hurt yourself by making cruelty a habit." There was no argument after that, just silence. A different kind of silence than before, one that didn't belong to her. When the call ended, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry. I felt lighter, like I had finally set something down that I had been carrying for far too long. Time moved forward, slowly, quietly. My life became something I chose, not something I reacted to. Some days, I spoke to her. Some days, I didn't. Both felt equally valid. My siblings began to reach out in small ways, hesitant at first, but real. I wasn't trying to rebuild what had been. I was building something new, something honest. I came to understand that love doesn't require silence. And respect doesn't require fear. That family isn't defined by control, and that breaking a cycle isn't the same as breaking a bond. Now, when I sit in my apartment, with nothing but the quiet around me, it doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. Every choice, every boundary, every moment of growth led me here. She still sets a place for me at Christmas. I've heard that she sometimes looks at it longer than she should, that she wonders, that she reflects. But that part of the story doesn't belong to me anymore. What belongs to me is the life I built after I stopped shrinking, after I stopped playing the role she had written for me. And in that life, I finally found something she could never give me: peace.